Being a reader is like being a pirate, and a reading goal list is, like the pirate code, much better to be thought of as a guideline than an actual set of rules. I like reading goals, but I'm not a stickler for my own. Any goals that I set for myself are ultimately subject to my moods. That said, I do try to create goals that I know I will have a desire to follow through on. So this last year, the goal I set for myself was to finish the fictional works of a number of my favorite authors. On the one hand, I did set this goal because I am a completionist. I like to tick off boxes or check off checklists, and just the simple pleasure of completing lists really appeals to me. The other reason, though, that I wanted to do this is because I am very interested in how, artists and writers progress and change, and kind of the different choices that they make for themselves. The 7 authors whose fiction I chose to finish this year were Don DeLillo, David Foster Wallace, Douglas Coupland, Edouard Leve, William Gaddis, Donna Tartt, and Dana Spiotta. Now, unfortunately, those last 2, the only women on the list, I did fail at completing. With Dana Spiotta, I didn't know coming into the year that she had a new book coming out this summer, and that's what I would be reading right now if it hadn't been that I had to return that library book, and it's, on hold by at least 3 other people at my local library. So I didn't get around to reading Wayward, but I did my initial goal. I think I get half credit on this. My initial goal was that I only needed to read Eat the Document. Now, as far as Donna Tartt goes, she's only written the 3 novels, and the one I hadn't read was A Little Friend. That's her second novel. It's about a 600-page book, and to be honest, I think I just read one too many middling reviews. Not reviews lambasting the book, not reviews praising the book, just middling, just kind of average, and so I didn't really want to spend time on a book that I thought was going to be probably a 3-star at best that was 600 pages. Now, as to the books that I actually did complete, with Don DeLillo, I'm not going to spend much time on this video on that. I've made 5 Don DeLillo videos this year. It's enough. It's probably too much. I will say very quickly that probably my tie for 3 favorite books this year were Ratner Star, Libra, and Underworld, all by Don DeLillo, all for sort of unique reasons that I go into in each of those reviews, but it was really hard for me to separate kind of which book I thought was, best or my favorite, because it almost changes based on what I'm thinking about on certain days. Moving on, I had never read Broom of the System by David Foster Wallace. I had read almost 10 years ago. Yeah, it'll be 10 years ago now, this next year, that I will have first started down the path of David Foster Wallace. So I felt it was important to finish this before the decade was out. It's easily his worst novel, not a surprise, and that's not really saying much. It's still a very good novel. It's still very enjoyable. I did find that it lacked a lot of the heart that I think is really the linchpin of his later work, both his novels and a lot of his short fiction. All that being said, again, it's a very good novel. I gave it 4 stars, and that is kind of measuring it up against the rest of David Foster Wallace's work. It would be interesting to kind of read that book in a vacuum and see how I reacted to it. As far as Douglas Coupland goes, this was another author who I didn't know that a new book of his was coming out this year, so I ended up reading 2 books initially. The only one on my list was Miss Wyoming. That one is about a child pageant star who grows up to be a model and in Hollywood, and sort of the relationship with her mother. I didn't think I was going to like that book, and I didn't like that book, so that's what I'll say about it. The other Douglas Coupland book, this one just came out. It's called Binge, 60 Stories to Make Your Brain Feel Different. And that kind of underwhelming subtitle is this book in microcosm. The stories don't feel really impactful. Some of them are interesting. They're all these little, what it really feels like, this book, is that they're 60 different microfictions that are sort of ideas or treatments for potential novels. Mostly what happens in this collection is that people have affairs, people kill people and stuff them inside their car top carriers, and people have disorganized, nonlinear thoughts about modern life because modern life is disorganized and nonlinear. As far as Edouard Leve go, I would highly recommend, if you've never seen it, go to Paperbird's channel. He does a great video on all 4 of his novels. The one I read this year was Suicide, and this was his last novel. It's a very compelling novel. You could almost call it a speculative novel in some ways, in which the writer, Leve, is sort of speculating and meditating on the suicide of one of his friends. And this suicide is, at the time of writing, the time of publication, I'm pretty sure the suicide was like 15 years or so old. So it was someone that Leve knew. Leve's middle-aged when he writes this, someone that he knew as a really young man. And so he's exploring that, brief life and ultimate act by that man. The other side of this story, though, is that 10 days or so after Leve turns in this novel, he kills himself. You're both reading the novel for Leve's thoughts and meditations on his friend, but you're also looking at how those thoughts themselves reflect Leve's inner state, as he's about to end his own life. Very compelling, not a light read. As far as the rest of his work goes, I think Auto Portrait is probably his best. My favorite, personally, is Works. I found Newspaper to be all right, decent, interesting enough, and I would put Suicide as above that. And the only reason I don't say that it's even better is because I have such high regard for both Works and Auto Portrait. The final author, William Gaddis, I only had 2 books to go on that, and I read and did a review on Carpenter's Gothic, which you can check out, and then A Frolic of His Own review should be coming in about 2 more weeks. Hopefully, maybe, probably. Now, moving on to my to-read list for 2022, these are the 10 books that I am most looking forward to read, that I most want to read. I'm kind of fudging a bit with the 10 books. It's a little loosey-goosey, but again, Pirates Code, guidelines, etc. So the first one, I mentioned that I finished David Foster Wallace's fiction, so I'm gonna start again with the last one. Recently made the mixtape of The Pale King. I'm going to give it a proper reread, and I want to do a whole review on this. It'll probably have to be a pretty lengthy review, but it is just one of the most important books that I've read in the last 10 years. I don't reread a lot, so I'm really excited to, when I do reread, it's usually a pretty treasured book. Like last year, I reread Less Than Zero, and that was the only reread that I did last year. So this year, I'll definitely do The Pale King. I think I'm probably going to just start off the new year with that. Next up, these are 2 books, but I'm counting them as one. They are the completion of a trilogy, and that is the Memory of Fire trilogy. I've read the first one, Genesis, a number of years ago now, and I've never got on these other 2. I do know, shout out to Echo from Echoes of Lost Libraries. I know that he's been in my comments recently, and I've been in his, and I know he's going through this right now. And so I'm probably going to read these right after, to be honest, The Pale King. I might also try and get the audiobook of Galeano's nonfiction book, Open Veins of Latin America, because that was a lot of the kind of background historical information that undergirds a lot of the stories and narratives in here. So that's number 2. Number 3, I've had this book for too long, and I finally decided I need to read it, because what if I die soon? Darkenville's Cat. I'm not enough of a lit bro yet because I have not read Darkenville's Cat, so I need to get on that. No, I'm really excited. I've sampled both this and some of his early short stories, because I have copies of both of those volumes that have come out from Tough Poets Press. So I'm confident that I will at least like on a sentence-by-sentence level, I will certainly like through, and I'm looking forward to, reading his best. Speaking of authors' bests and of lit broness, another book I'm going to have on this list is At Swim Two Birds by Flann O'Brien. I have read The Third Policeman, and I have read The Delkey Archive. But this is kind of considered his most major work, I guess, though there is a lot of love, and rightly so, for The Third Policeman. But yeah, this is another book that I've had for a number of years, and it's just one of those kind of classics of 20th century literature, or at least of the 20th century literature that I'm interested in. Some books that I want to read that I don't have copies of in front of me. First off, bringing it back to my 2021 list, I do want to read Wayward by Dana Spiotta, and so I'll either, get the copy of that from the library or, break down and actually buy one. Another one that is a brand new book this year is called The Dawn of Everything. This is the only nonfiction book that I have on my list, and that is by David Graeber. I've read most of David Graeber's stuff. I've not read his first book, which is about a sort of civilization in Madagascar. He's an anthropologist. And Dawn of Everything, for those of you that may not know, David Graeber died last year, just over a year ago. And so The Dawn of Everything it was one of many books planned with a guy by the name of David Wengrow, or perhaps it's David Vengrow. Anyway, it was one of many planned books, but I think this will be the only one that they come out with. And this book sort of purports to, in many ways, counteract a lot of the Rousseau-like myths that persist within, our collective understanding of humanity and civilization and anthropology and of hierarchical structures. I'm looking forward to that. There's I've read a number of very effusive things about this book. I've also read some criticisms about it. So I'm interested in reading that, but also engaging in the praise and critiques of that particular book. Next book on my list, I think we're at 7, let's call it 7, is going to be the new book by Alexandra Kleeman's Something New Under the Sun. I really liked her first novel, You Too Can Have a Body Like Mine. She's published another collection of short stories. I haven't read that, but I am very interested in this novel, and that's another novel that, I was almost going to try and read it this year, but there were tons of people at the library that wanted it. Number 8 on the list is going to be a book that I found just kind of on the bargain shelf this last year, in that I'm really interested in the writer now because it looks like she has a ton of different things that all look really interesting, and that is Karen Tay Yamashita's Through the Arc of the Rainforest. This freewheeling black comedy features a bizarre cast of characters, including a Japanese man with a ball floating 6 inches in front of his head, an American CEO with 3 arms, and a Brazilian peasant who discovers the art of healing by tickling one's earlobe with a feather. By the end of this hilarious tale, they have each risen to the heights of wealth and fame before arriving at disasters, both personal and ecological, that destroy the rainforest and all the birds of Brazil. So that sounds hilarious and depressing. Why wouldn't I be into it, right? For number 9, I want to read a Vollmann book. I've read 3 so far, but I want to read one of these 2 in particular, and I haven't really decided which one I'd rather read, so this is going to be a big mood read, and I do not think I'll be able to get to both of them, because Vollmann is a dense motherfucker. The 2 I'm looking at are his debut novel, You Brighton Risen Angels, and then Fathers and Crows, the second of the 7 Dreams series. I've read the first one. I've read Ice Shirt, so this would be the natural kind of second one to go to. I have heard nothing but good things about that one. Honestly, I haven't heard any bad things about You Brighton Risen Angels. Vollmann is, of course, a very prolific author, and so I doubt I will ever read everything by him, but I do want to definitely read the 7 Dreams series, and I do really want to read You Brighton Risen Angels, so on to the next step of progress this year. Hey, what's up? It's Nate coming to you live or recorded from the editing studio. So, for whatever reason, the audio did not record on this. Oh, look at dear sweet Nate flubbing his lines and thinking that any of it is going to matter. So yeah, didn't record properly. This is just to say that I will be reading, there it is, Divine Days by Leon Forrest. I honestly don't know what I was talking about all right here because I get most of the
recording in the next clip. So all I will say is that Henry Louis Gates Jr. Called it the War and Peace of the, I think, Black American novel. Actually, also, I will say that this whole novel purportedly takes place over 1 week. 7 days. For more, we go to our Divine Days correspondent. Properly
This book
recorded
is
date
Ulysses,
and
like in scope.
go.
Another way I've seen it described is like the Ulysses of Southside Chicago. It concerns our protagonist is Joubert Jones, or Joubert Jones, and he is a bartender on the south side of Chicago and also an aspiring playwright. But the book concerns not just him, but this huge cast of characters at this really interesting and pivotal moment, not just in American history, but in Black American history. So I'm very interested to see the back cover invokes Francois Rabelais and Shakespeare. So I'm really interested to see what this book is. I'm saying from the outset, it'll be tough for me to get to this one, but I really do think I can finish those other 9. So might as well make the goal as difficult as possible. So that's a wrap up of what I read this last year and the 10 books I'm looking forward to reading this year. Let me know if you have a kind of list of books that you're thinking about. Put it in the comments, make a video, tell me in the comments that you've made a video about this, whatever, pimp yourself out in my comments. I don't care. I will at least want to watch it, and probably some other people might too. Other than that, thank you for watching. A Frolic of His Own review is coming very soon, so subscribe if you want to see that. That's all I got. Professor, you got anything?
This is Zay Frank, thinking so you don't have to.
Where the fuck do ideas come from? Where the fuck do ideas come from? Where the fuck do ideas come from? Some people like to be all alone, sitting half naked up on the throne. Personally, that don't work for me, cause it smells like the poo-poo that just came from me. Where the fuck do ideas come from? Where the fuck do ideas come from? Where the fuck do ideas come from?